Alright, what's up everybody? This is the lesson for 2.1. Alright, so 2.1, talking about a few things. We'll back up. So chapter 1 was all about one categorical or quantitative data. Alright, we're looking at graphs and charts dealing with one variable. But chapter 2 is all about when we have more than one. Mainly when we have two variables. And what we can do and ways we can show that using graphs and all that stuff. So today we have 3 learning targets. Maybe pause the video and make sure to write those down. But we are going to be able to distinguish between explanatory and response variables. We're going to be able to make segmented bar charts. And then we're also going to be able to determine if there is an association between two variables. All right. So, moving on to vocab here, we have our first thing we're talking about is the difference between a response variable and an explanatory variable. Alright, so we're going to be dealing with charts that kind of are dealing with two variables, like I said earlier, and we have to determine which of those variables is the response variable and which one's the explanatory variable. So an example would be like if we were to look at like height and weight. Right? We have two variables. One person's, if we were to take like an entire class, their height and weight. All right, if we were to try to figure out which one's the explanatory and which one's the response, kind of ask yourself which one determines the other. All right, so does someone's weight determine how tall they are, or does someone's height determine how much they weigh? All right, it's more the taller you are, the bigger chance of you weighing more, right? So what we would figure out is we would call the height, or that person's height, the explanatory variable, and then their weight the response variable, right? So you'll have a few questions about that where you have to look at those two variables and determine which one is which. All right, also, what's kind of explained here is sometimes it's not clear. Like if we were to, the example the book uses is if we were to look at everyone's eye color and hair color. All right, knowing someone's eye color doesn't explain their hair color, right? That just doesn't make sense. So sometimes it's not clear which one's the explanatory and which one's the response. All right, and that's getting into what's called association. And we'll talk about that in a little bit here. But next, what we're talking about is what's called a segmented bar chart. All right, last chapter we talked about bar charts a lot. Here's an example of what a bar chart kind of looks like. But instead of making that big graph, instead we can make what's called a segmented bar chart. All right, so if we were to look at bar chart on the left, I don't even, what do you call that, blue? A weird colored blue. That represents the females. And if we were to stack up all of those percentages for the females, it would add up to 100%. Alright, so really, drawing a lot of circles here. Let me be more specific. If we took all of these bluish bars and stack them on top of each other, that's what's called a segmented bar chart. Alright, notice how kind of each of these, like invisibility is 15%. If you notice, invisibility is at 15% on that segmented bar chart. Alright, so we're just taking like a side-by-side bar chart, and we're just kind of stacking them on top of each other. That's how we get a segmented bar chart. And it's easy to kind of refer to, like you can easily figure out by looking at just this segmented bar chart. Of those males, looks like 40% prefer freezing time. Which, look at that. It's about 40%. Alright, so that's kind of how you interpret those segmented bar charts. We're going to move on to how to make a segmented bar chart. Alright, there's 6 steps. First, you have to identify the variables. Identify the variables. Second step, draw and label the axes. Third step, we have to be able to scale the axes. Fourth step, draw 100% bars. We're just writing this in right now. I'll kind of explain how to do each one in a little bit. Next one, segment each of the bars. And our last step, we have to include a key. Alright, so zoom out there. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. Our first step, we have to identify the variables. So we got to figure out which one is the explanatory and which one is the response. And once you do that, you have to draw and label the axes. I'm just going to refer to this. Notice how we labeled the percents and the gender there. Sorry, backing up. So the gender would be the explanatory, and then what superpower this person prefers would be the response. Next, you have to scale the axes. That's just referring to the percents. Draw 100%. So each of these segmented bar charts always go up to 100%. And then segment each of them. That's just kind of marking out the percentages. And then you have to include a key. Otherwise, we don't know what those bars mean. Alright. So, and then the last thing we're talking about is what's called association. Association just figures out if there is an association between gender and superpower preference. Right? So, how you can tell if there is an association between two segmented bar charts is if they look the same, then there's no association. If they look different, there is an association. In this case, those two bar charts do not look the same. So I'm just going to write there is an association on that problem, on that bar chart. Alright. Otherwise, if you look at two segmented bar charts and they look the exact same, there'd be no association. Like if we were to take the hair color and eye color, there's no association between those two, so those two segmented bar charts would look the exact same. Alright, and then once we get into class, we'll be doing this problem together, and then this one as well. Alright, so we'll be doing a few examples there, but that's the basics and the important things from 2.1. Alright, thanks for listening. Peace.